We're on.
All right, the meeting's now being live streamed on YouTube.
This be, afternoon out here.
Okay, we're here and we got the sheriff hopefully online there and we're ready to go. So Sheriff, we're just gonna turn it over to you and let you go forward.
All right, we presented our budget, and we've been talking, I know there's been some questions about Dr. Bates's, medical contract on the jail, because what it was showing, Gary and I, and Captain Rudder have gone through that, and we have decided, or we've looked at it, and we've talked to Dr. Bates too, that 1.7 million that's put in there, that includes also pathways, and some other services that has nothing to do with Dr. Bates. He actually, put those in there. And the other thing is, he had done an average over the last couple of years and saw where that medical cost had increased. So that's the reason he's probably got more in the medical contract or that medical services than what it should be. It was just for, that way in case we had an overage. Of course, that doesn't include your hospital costs and all of that if you have to go outside the hospital. So, we've gone through our budget, and I've got the different people here. I've got Captain Rudder here, so I don't know if y'all want, we did not do a PowerPoint as we have in years past because, y'all didn't want to see it except for a few minutes. So, we didn't do one this year. What we've done as far as our clearance rate and what the sheriff's done, we have, our clearance rate at this time is over 60%. And, actually the, average for West Tennessee, if you take all West Tennessee agencies, they're like 32%. So we're way above, the average. We actually started that as soon as we got in. We started going up from, you were down to about, I think, 14 or maybe.
Okay, everyone.
So he's doubling his budget.
Do you not think that we couldn't hire a doctor and 4 or 5 nurses for that? Good gosh.
I think we could run clinic.
You might be.
There's a lot in there,
We need nurse practitioners, you know, they can do it.
but they won't, I mean, they usually,
That'll work, but
What?
Is he
they gotta work for a doctor, or be under a doctor.
Says the live stream doesn't seem to be
because you have 2 or 3 deaths and it costs you a fortune.
Oh.
just.
If the doctor's wrong, give them the wrong drug.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, it seems that there are some technical issues on the sheriff's side. I'm working with Chad.
Tell him the media says they're not.
Hey, Matt, the media says that.
Can y'all hear us?
Where do you see these revenues
I mean, just in your best guess or best guesstimate or whatever, where do you see
Chad, can you take it
Well,
off
I
on
can
her?
tell you
Read
this,
that.
I've opened my doors back up, and,
This morning.
since the doors have been
We can't access it because Matt and them are pre-staging all this.
it? Screen.
Hey Chad, can I get a radio check?
Matt, can you hear us?
All right, the meeting's now being
Sure
live
can.
streamed on YouTube.
Okay. Matt, can you give us a link or send me a text where we can access this on the video screen?
Yep, I emailed it to you, but I'll send it to you via text.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, can you hear me now? Matt, can you hear me now? Doug, can you hear me?
Yes.
Something unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I mean, that just shows you just.
Well,
Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, Harold, I can hear you.
Oh, we
We
can
can
see
hear
this
you,
thing
Harold.
lining.
They will be joining us momentarily.
Matt, can you hear me now? Matt Preston, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Sheriff. Sarah, unmute y'all's end.
Yeah, and you don't have a whole IT staff, do you? Especially when it makes $98,000.
We're unmuted.
We're live.
We're going live.
Can you hear us, Matt?
Sure can.
We're in, okay. Are we ready to start?
We are.
Okay. Did you, could you hear me earlier when I was talking about what we were doing?
Yes, on the medical contract, we heard you, Sheriff. Yes, sir.
Yeah. We've looked at that, and on the medical contract, I think you can reduce that 1.7 million down to 1.4 million. That takes care of Pathways and Life Check.
And Dr. Bates.
And Dr. Bates, and that gives us just a small cushion in case something goes over or over what we budgeted. He had gone through and actually done an analysis over the couple of years and seen how much it was going up. So that's the reason he ended up doing that. But we have talked to Dr. Bates, and if you want to know about right now, he has given us a credit for $21,000 for this quarter. We can either apply it for the next quarter, or you can hold it however you want to do it. He also showed us what our atypical meds were on a bill back in December, and they were $14,000 just for that month. So we are at the 1.3 million for Dr. Bates, which he hadn't gone over. So you can change that on the budget request that we sent in. We have gone through and we've looked at it. We've looked at everything that we do. I have different people here in the room that are over their departments, and I don't know if you heard me, but our clearance rate and what we're doing is way above it's way above the national average, but it's also way above West Tennessee, because West Tennessee is between 33 and 34% clearance rate, and we're up over almost 61%. So we're really high on our clearance rate in the cases that we're doing. And so the other thing that you can look at too, what we look at is where we stand as far as cases or ongoing seriousness of cases Actually, because of our proactive law enforcement that we're doing and being out and the deputies out there and everything we're doing, we've actually decreased on the number of calls on those types. And I hate to brag on that, but that has gone over for the past few years from the time we came in 2014. So that's, to me, that's a big plus. That shows that, you know, we are proactive. We actually do on, there's lots of transports to jail. As you know, the jail population had really mushroomed and expanded. And in CJC alone, we were at over 530 something inmates at one time. And all the other facilities were maxed out. And so when you're talking about inmates, you're talking anywhere from 600 to 700 inmates in those facilities. And we also are using, we do cite people in when they commit a crime that we can do that for to help keep that number down. And so that's kind of where we are there. And the budget we submitted, we feel is what we need. And of course, you take this amount off, so that does reduce it down. I guess I will say that we're kind of in a situation right now because of the lawsuit that's pending on what we can do with our budget. And we've been operating on an agreed budget for this past year. And I don't know if you want to start going through the line items. I don't know how you feel like you would like to proceed, but I'll kind of open it up for if you've got questions, or if you'd like to hear, you might want to hear from Chief Overton because he's done lots of studies, and we can go ahead and let him tell you what's going on through the studies and why our personnel and what we've asked for is such an important thing.
Back in December.
Gentlemen, do we have any questions for the sheriff?
I just got one question, Sheriff. And looking at your
Yes,
budget, the training center, is it still operating?
We have not done anything since the COVID virus, but it will be, we've actually, some things, we've had stuff that was scheduled. We had to cancel our in-services. We've already done this year. I've got numbers, how many people have been through as far as our people and how much is our cost savings. And so TCI, of course, does our training for our corrections, and all of that's been put on hold. But from what we're understanding, I was talking to the academy today, and they're probably, if everything goes well, they're going to be starting back up in June and July. So we've already had some courses that we schedule for our people, and people were coming in, and we're just trying to see what they're going to do. Some of them are going to have to travel here to put on the class.
Does your budget reflect any operational costs for the training center or any revenue?
No, we haven't put that in there. We really, you know, our biggest revenue is where we actually are cost savings, so we won't have to send our people somewhere else. And if we figured up the numbers, and I've got those printouts on the numbers of how much we have. So you're talking about if we had to send our people where these courses are, you're way up in the $200,000 and $300,000 mark, which we're not paying any of that cost because they're getting it right here and they're not traveling and having travel cost and per diem. And we don't have any personnel that's assigned just directly for the training center.
We have any questions? Commissioner Taylor, Warner, go ahead.
You said a while ago that the number of people you had in all the facilities were up to almost 600 this past year. What is it now? Because I read in the paper somewhere or another, it's way down.
just because of the releases as of today, we had 309 in CJC. We had 71 in the penal farm, and we had, and then we had 36 in the annex, the old above the courthouse. So if you figure that up, you're between 400 and around 450. And then we've also got 111 TDOCs, inmates, which the state hadn't been picking anybody up. But now court starts coming back up, you're going to see that population increase again. Captain Rudder, would you like to speak to that?
What state paying us now to keep those?
Sir, what?
I said, what is the state paying us to keep those for
$39 a day.
I know on the state portion of it, I know that they have been talking, they talked last year because I testified before the Senate subcommittee, and Senator Yeager, who chairs that, they talked about that they felt that the state needed to increase what they're paying the county jails to keep these state inmates, which they do. And so that doesn't mean that it's going to happen this year, but I know that's something that they're looking at doing, but it needs to increase.
They should at least let us recover our costs.
That's true.
Okay, anything else?
Sheriff, we ask all departments to try to cut their budgets 3%. You got some pretty significant increases here.
Well, we did. We actually took it from the budget that we started to propose, and we actually cut it over 3%. We actually got the number of staffing that we've asked for patrol deputies in there, and so that's where all that cost comes from.
We're going the wrong way, I think.
Well, you have to understand that the budget that we're under right now is the budget that y'all placed and we agreed to it. And, the budget I've submitted you, I think it's necessary to discharge the statutory mandated duties of their office. And we did, from our original, where we started on our budget, we did reduce it by 3%, and actually a bit more.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. I don't think we have any more questions. Thank you. Well, Karen has one question.
On the medical contract line item, you said that's embedded with pathways. Would it be possible to have that broken out so that we would actually?
We can do that. We can do that. We can do that in Life Check. We can take that out, and if you want to put two different line items, or if you want to put path.
I think that's what we'd like to do, so that when we're talking about Dr. Bates, we're not having to figure out what's his and what's not. I noticed you also increased your drug line item, but I know some of that was supposed to be covered with Dr. Bates' contract. So could you tell me what drugs are that you've increased?
I think Captain Ritter can tell you some of the specialty drugs that Dr. Bates doesn't pay for.
We've had a spike in some medication on HIV. With TDOC not taking anybody in due to COVID, we've ended up about 3 or 4 extra HIV cases. That's when it really gets a little bit higher than what we're used to. That's the highest cost drug there is. And Karen, it's hard to speculate what you're going to have on that in a year's time as far as those type of patients. Most of the other medication will stay in line, but like I say, that's I've been working on that today, as a matter of fact. I've actually gotten 2 of those people released from custody, and some of the ones, like I say, are TDOC, but we're working on trying to drive that line down. So that would be the only thing I wouldn't have for a sure thing on.
And Tom, you might tell them how much it is per inmate. If they're in there, I mean, how much it costs.
$3,000 an injection per month, so.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Karen, you still there?
Yes.
I'm about done with this. I'm gonna try to run these, stats and numbers out to you that I got on, from Dr. Bates and let you look at them.
That'd be great. If you get that to me, I might can put together a presentation for the commission on the 18th.
Yeah, not a problem. I should be finished up with them in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are we muted?
No, he needs to adjourn.
I don't need to adjourn, but I'd like to meet well.
Doug,
Yeah.
this is Tommy. Karen sent to the sheriff, I think, some questions around the middle of April.
Right.
I'd like to know if those have been addressed yet from the sheriff's perspective.
I think she sent it to you, but we'll make sure that you have a copy of it, Tommy.
Yeah, I've got a copy of the questions. I just wondered if they'd been answered by
They
the
had been
sheriff.
answered,
I'll send the
but she'll send it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let me address this real quick, because this is something Mike and Jason had called earlier and talked to Gary, but one of the things we've got down there, and this is just an option. I'm not saying it's something we want to do, but this is an option. We can use you cannot use borrowings for operational, but you can use it for capital or and then educational capital. So we have approximately, can you add those pennies up together? We have 5.26 for capital, and we have 3.89 for educational capital. How much is it? 9.2. Now multiply that times the 227. How much? 2,085,000. So what we talked about, Mike and Jason had mentioned this, was to consider, just a consideration, to maybe borrow 2.1, 2.2 for these capital and educational capital needs, the absolutely necessary. Karen has done a really good job on that. It just get our absolute things that we absolutely have to have, then move that 2.1, those 9.2 pennies up to the general fund. That way we've got ample funding right there. We're going to say ample. But what that would do was that would increase our fund balance probably what? The 2.2. So we'd have, can you pull the fund balance up so we can see that? Can you get off that and then pull the fund? So what I'm saying is that would, it'd be about 8 million then.
And, I think that gives us a little more wiggle room and just a little more insurance, because everything that we're dealing with is hypotheticals. And I mean, we don't know what the sales tax and what everything's going to come in. And like we said, we can't borrow for operating, but we can for capital. So
Hey, Jason, I'm sorry to interrupt. One thing that we didn't take into account though, is we've still got the 2 pennies that we got through maintenance of effort. Then we also have the 7 pennies for debt service. So in all reality, just hang in. So what I'm saying is we would actually end up having a general fund balance of around $10 million. Now, I know Karen is a little concerned on the debt service, on the seven pennies. Now that could be necessarily, we'd have to take a look at that. We may not have to move that whole thing or move just a partial amount of that, just to cover us for this year.
I'd like to leave it.
Well, I would like to also.
I was gonna say, what's gonna be determined, the 2.5?
But I mean, that's just, I'm just trying to throw, I want everybody to understand where we are on our options. I'm not saying yay or nay on anything. I just want everybody to understand where we are. So,
It's a very likely possibility that the governor will have executive order that will freeze maintenance of effort.
right. So I would prefer, like Mike, to keep that money in debt service. I think that's a very, very.
I agree.
Thing. But what I'm saying is we do have that option if we had to deal with that. So that's just something else to, for our consideration.
What would borrowing $2 million do? What would that add to our debt service?
Well, we haven't really worked on that yet. And that's the thing is, we need to put those numbers to it. I'll let her call Ashley and see what our options are there.
If you're looking at payback in 1 year, I don't think it's gonna hurt too much, because if you'll remember, your lease payment on the new schools is not due or anticipated to be due until July of 21. So it's in next fiscal year anyway.
Right.
So not incurring. So right now your debt service is at 85.5 million. So you wouldn't be, add another 2 million, knowing that you're going to pay it back. I don't think it's going to hurt us much at all, because we're in good shape.
If we leave the money in debt service.
And you could move some, but
you see, we're going to end up having 8 million plus about another 454,000. So we'll have 8.5, which is a lot better than what we were looking at.
What you're thinking of doing the 2.5 million, that would be something we probably wouldn't spend, hopefully.
We're gonna spend it, but we might be able to pay it back quickly.
No, well, what Gary's saying is we'd have it in general fund balance. We might not have to spend it because based on circumstances.
Back up. What do you think is going to be in general fund?
Well, I meant the pennies. I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. I meant the
Financial management will stop.
I'm sorry. I misspoke.
If financial management will stop stuff there, we won't spend it.
Well, we're gonna stop stuff.
Okay. So that's a good point. But you see, what we're doing right there is, and I don't mind saying this right on that, preparing us for the lawsuit. If we have a negative outcome on that, at least we're moving in the right direction to get that covered.
I hope that the department head, that we can get across the fact when this budget is approved, there's no need to come back for any more money because there's not any.
I've done a poor job on a couple of people doing that, but here recently I've done better on because we had talked at one point about some things coming back. I haven't said it but about 3 times, but I think we got it. Have I said it more than that?
Oh, yeah.
I have not said it more than 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Saying.
Oh, yes.
Did I say it more than 3
Yes.
times? Then I
Yes.
apologize. I didn't realize that.
Well, maybe we could send out a reminder on a weekly basis.
That was my bad then.
But that's a good thing.
Okay.
Well,
My bad.
Oh, yes.
once again, for the record, I know we're live streaming, is your smaller departments have done an excellent job with their budgets on trying to make reductions. As a matter of fact, I'll even go as far as saying countywide, with the exception of one player in the game. And that player in the game is the one that's coming back with the multiple amendments every month. So.
And I had a chat with that person yesterday, so I nipped that. The one with multiple amendments?
No, the sheriff's department.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the maintenance.
No, the sheriff.
I'm talking about the sheriff.
We're talking about the sheriff.
Yeah, we're talking about the sheriff.
Is always.
The
bringing
sheriff
back-
presented, we asked all departments for a 3% decrease. You saw he had a 30% plus increase.
He reduced his
So-
request by 3%.
So, and again, I applaud your other team players in the county for being committed to try to meet the goal of what we're going through with, 1, a pandemic that none of us anticipated, 2, even before this hit, Commissioner Stevenson had asked for departments to do a 3% cut.
Mhm.
And, you know, we're sitting here pulling from other departments to increase the fund balance because we feel threatened by a department that's hogging the budget.
And has been for 6 years.
So it's not fair to the taxpayers.
What we need to do is we need to go back to last year's original budget, find 3% cuts in there outside of maintenance of effort. Send it through.
Well, and Commissioner Taylor, the issue with that is that, and I know you guys went through this last year even before I got here, you can reduce the bottom line, but line item wise, that's within the control of that elected official.
That's fine. That's all thing I'm interested in, bottom line.
But we have to know where to make those
The
reductions.
problem is, yeah, Mike, the problem is we have to know where to put those cuts. I mean, she could, you know, they can go ahead and cut 3% there, but he can.
But we don't know where distributor
We're just
allocate
guessing.
those.
I mean, I understand, I'm in total agreement with what you're saying. But the problem is how to work that to get that done. No problem, understand about the 3%. But where do you?
Ask them to do it, or we would have to figure it out.
And I assume as a legislative body, if it came down to it, you could vote on it, it would be approved, doesn't mean that they have to abide by it.
Right.
Well, they don't have to abide by it. They abide by the bottom line and spend it the way they want to begin with.
The bottom line,
Right down to it.
we've had this conversation, they're gonna sue us anyway again.
Yeah.
Well, if they're gonna sue us again, we might as well do it the way we wanna do it. But what I'm saying is the 3% is gonna be a real problem for us to try to figure out how to do it.
And Commissioner Stevenson, you can't sue a turnip and get something out that ain't
Well,
there.
we've talked about that too. I think
Well,
you're right.
and the 3% he cut won't even pay his legal fees.
The only thing I would say is we don't take anything from the jail. Everything comes from
Administrative.
other departments.
Can't do that.
Non-essential.
What about the medical?
You know, I was in favor of us either grouping together with other counties, because Dr. Bates isn't doing anything for anybody around here, or bidding it out, trying to figure out if there is a better solution. Dr. Bates may be the best solution. We don't know. But nobody's ever
Well,
looked.
we don't know till Karen gets numbers to.
Well, Captain Rudder thinks he is, and I have all the confidence in the world, in Captain Rudder.
But we need to have some numbers to look at. I love Tom too, but I don't want to put all that burden on Tom without us looking at the numbers.
Didn't we have, when they first started looking at that and we went that way, didn't they have a lot of data that we looked at that showed that there would be a cost savings?
If I remember correctly, and we did, I remember.
And so at that time, we were confident that this was going to work. But somehow, well, obviously costs have gone up, drugs, but it shouldn't have gone up that much.
I just can't say, because
Well, I don't know either, but
several years.
that's a starting point.
And again,
I'm sorry.
go
Let me
ahead.
ask one question. We go down to 22, whatever, and we say, hey, we want to reduce that 3%. How difficult is that going to be for your department to be able to reduce 3%?
We can calculate the 3% today. The difficulty comes in the line items.
That's what I
And
meant.
we can make recommendations on proposed line items, but there again, it is not, it's his budget. You know, that's what I
understand.
emphasize.
But that's what I'm saying is.
But we can come back with a
Well, I
proposal.
know, because the 3% would be $660-something thousand. The way I got it.
Right,
if I'm
exactly.
saying that correctly. But what I'm saying is the line items. That's where the problem
Exactly.
runs.
And for the record, what I want to say is, we've gone through 3 days of budget hearings now, correct? And we've gone through the different departments that we've met with, and we've made many reductions, many maybe painfully for some of these, I don't know, to build up a fund balance to allow one department to have the funds. And
Why don't we show that real quick, what we've got? can you go ahead and just do the revenues and the expenditures so I can let everybody sort of see where we are? While I count my $15. I want y'all to see this, sort of where we are, because what Karen and y'all have been here, but I want you to see where we are on the expenses and where we are on the revenues. And I think we've been very conservative on both sides of that. Now, the revenues are showing 44,889, 813, you know, for this year. Now, that includes, that includes grants, and that includes grants and where we are on the general fund. Okay, so I want you to see that. Okay, now, if we'll turn and we'll go to expenses, and I'll let y'all discuss that. We're 45,795, which is about 9%. I can't remember. Yeah, if you can do that, that would be helpful. What's the difference in that, Michelle? Can you do the revenue minus the, sorry. I know you're gonna yell at me.
But that has the,
Do what now?
sheriff's current budget in the request, doesn't it?
No. Have we already reduced that down to 2? We have, and just.
Yeah, plus the grants.
But it includes the grants, Mike. The expenses on the grants and everything too. Sorry. So we're still down 1.205671 according to revenues and expenditures. However,
Are you saying we got to make up 1.2 million?
Yeah, that's what I
So
was
some of the source.
well, that's what we need to look at our options on what we need to try to do on that 1 point. Am I saying that right on the 1.2? I mean, we still got to, we have the opportunity to move those pennies. We still got the opportunity to move those pennies, which would be 2 pennies would be cut that down.
And if you reduce the sheriff 30%, that's 600-something thousand.
So we'd have that covered with the pennies and then cut the sheriff, we'd be right even. Now, a decision that we have to make is if we needed to you know, move a couple of those pennies out of debt service, I'm just saying that would give us some ample more money too. I'm not saying the whole thing. I'm just saying a couple just to get us moved. So we got those 3, you know, those options there. But I think we're leaning more towards cutting the sheriff 3% because, well, I mean, we had, you know,
I don't think there's any lean.
well, I don't think there is either.
And I'm going all.
But I don't have a problem. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page there. But that would put our revenue, I mean, our revenues above our expenditures, which at this point, I feel like we need to be in a good, safe situation.
Hopefully at least even.
Oh, yeah. You know, sometimes we've always run a little bit higher on the expenses, but we knew we had money that was going to be turned back in. Well, you know, last year we turned in how much? 900, was it 900, 1.3? That includes some grant money,
But,
right?
But cut them in this year 3% on the front end.
Right.
Less turned back in.
Yeah.
Well, and this year, I think, you know, for sure, I think the expenses you can bet will be higher, and I think you can bet the revenues will be less.
That's
Yeah, and
most likely the case.
I will make sure the committee's aware. These do include the reduced revenues. Again, I go back over. Sales tax has been reduced by 25%. Of course, gas taxes in the highway fund, that's been reduced by 15%. Business tax is all going to local purpose this year. We've reduced that by 30%. And currently hotel motel tax is reduced by 50%. So this is with the reduction in revenues.
Now, what we're going to do too, Karen has reached out to Paul Taylor and also to the city council, and we're going to have a meeting with them, not the whole budget committee, but we're going to meet with them to make sure that we're all on the same page on the library, any kind of joint funding, library, EMA, and airport. We want to make sure, because we don't want a hiccup where the city comes back and goes, oh, we don't have the funds to do that this year. We're gonna kick that down the road and ask y'all to take that over. No, we want to be on the same page. It's like with this hotel motel tax. I'll just use an example. We had heard through the grapevine that they were gonna go up to, 75 or 80% on a hotel motel, when in reality, they talked about at the beginning about being at 50%. We need to understand where we are, where we are with them, because we have a certain commissioner in here. I'm just gonna look at him, but we have a certain commissioner that says we got to be real careful about, dealing, moving forward and making sure that, we don't get the short end of the stick. If I'm saying that nicely. So that's sort of where we are, but I want to make y'all aware, and I think we're moving in the right direction. But what I need from everyone is, if you have something that's outside the box, then don't be afraid, even if you think it's the most stupid thing in the world, something, even a stupid question. We need to know. We got 5 smart people in here, but we need some ideas on some things to be able to move forward. And you are one of the smart.
Well, I was looking around, I was like, there's 8 of us in here.
Who's the 3 nutties?
I'm in on the committee. Okay. Anything else? Anybody got a question?
Duke, where were we on the park out south?
Park out south. Great question. You weren't here yesterday. What we're doing is we're looking at, Ed is exploring about kicking that can down the road, or else even eliminating it. That's what we're trying to do. And that's going to be another, now we still have that 500,000.
It is currently in the capital numbers.
It's in the capital, which means that we could take that out of capital, which would be really, really good, because if we do have some type of emergency, I mean, just a roof comes down or something like that, we'd have those funds available to do that. So Ed is working on that, and then we'll get that squared away. Also, for you guys that weren't here, we're going to have a reduction in the recreation department, and you may have heard that we're looking at doing some closings and doing some things there too. So, any more questions?
Where are we on the school project? Building the 2 schools.
Where are we on the what now?
Building the 2 schools, joint venture.
I'll let you answer.
The closing took place on March the 27th with all entities that were involved: the school system, the county, the city, and the CRA. The new market tax credits were awarded. Ground has been broken from what I understand. The leases were signed by both entities, with the county, JCM, the city, Madison, and from understandings, the first lease payment will be due FY22, July of 21. So that's where we are.
Now, Warner, I mean, it's been, for use of a better phrase, misrepresented that we kicked Pope down the road, that we had the money in because of pandemic. That was not the case. We were going to have to borrow the money for Pope. And I think it's been misrepresented in the media or misunderstood that we had the money, and we're just not doing that. That's not the case at all. We're trying to get ourselves in a position.
It may not be true, but I've heard also it's rumored that the city's no way they can do the project.
Well, they ain't doing it. Will they do it? Will they do it or not?
Well, it may be true. Somebody's going to take it over if they start it. They can't finish it.
They're responsible.
They've got $6 million though they can take back from us in a few years.
Yeah. I'm afraid of it.
Warner, that's why it's imperative that we have this meeting to know what their situation is, and we need for them to look in the eye and say, I'm not talking about a Zoom meeting. I'm talking about get a belly to belly and say, hey, this is where we are.
Might catch something.
And we need to know exactly where they are.
How about elbow to elbow?
I think probably what you're saying, I think we left the impression, based on what we thought was going to take place, that we would be able to go forward. We left that impression. We talked in that direction because that's what we wanted to do, but we was never committed to anything. The fact that we felt things would fall in place, and they haven't fallen in place.
Right.
We voted for a wheel tax to build it, but it got voted down.
That's right.
So the revenues wasn't there. We all agreed we would like to build a boat, but until we get the revenue,
Now, Harold, if you're on the, Harold, are you on the line? I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it again, and I wanna make sure everybody understands this. If you don't think they're coming after our $6 million in 2027, then you're living in a dream world. Because they're coming after that money. They're gonna have that money.
that's what
And I'm just saying, we gotta prepare ourselves, because we're gonna be in a bad shape.
But if they start that school and don't have the money, they may come after the 6 million a lot sooner than that.
They can't, we got this time, we got a binding, a beginning and an ending contract. And it begins, and it ends like this
Not until you have a court case, they rule on it. Not until you have a court case, they rule on it.
the problem is, Warner, that contract ends right when the balloon payments due.
Yeah.
For school. That ain't by accident.
We're trying to get to extend that, but they,
Yeah, I don't think that.
their fears.
That's my concern is they're gonna get into it, then they're gonna back out, then they're gonna come after us for the difference.
Warren, the only thing I can say to you is, you won't be on the budget committee then, and I won't be on the county commission then, so that'll be somebody else's headache.
What is that next year?
I'm not taking your money.
I'll take her portion.
Hi, Taylor.
Okay, anything else?
Sorry, I wasn't here, so I didn't hear that
Okay,
conversation.
no problem. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay.
Second.
Second? Warner second. Okay, roll call. Taylor,
Here.
Turner,
Here.
White,
Here.
Stevenson, here, Compton.
Yes.
Okay, we'll see y'all in the morning. I believe we're starting a meeting at 9 o'clock. Is that correct?
8:25.
8:25.
You've been
County
late.
Commission, Gary D.
Mackerel.
You're going to
Yeah,
do
for
Gary's
first
right
thing in the
now, so you
morning.
don't have to come back.
I don't bear anyway, like 25, I gotta get the cruise out.
We got y'all covered.
It's covered anyway.
We can do it.
I live
We
up
can
there,
make,
no
I
matter
tell you
what.
what, let's do.